How much income is enough income? Keep listening and you'll find out. In today's podcast episode, we are going to be talking about how much is enough when it comes to income, which this is a really hot topic. It
can be a little tricky.
It's fraught, and the answer differs. Our culture certainly says, earn as much as you possibly can, as fast as you possibly can, and
so
make
you can
sure
spend as much as you can.
Just always more is the driver, right? More. Consumption, pride, status, power. That is all connected to money, and money unlocks doors. Money gives you opportunities, not in a good way. You know, that's kind of what's driving the culture. It's just endless earning. And, you know, who do we worship and hail as, you know, the best of the best? It's the billionaires. It's the tech startup people. It's the, they hit lightning by, you know, inventing this thing. And we worship people who basically have the story of coming from nothing and then whoosh, escalating into riches, right? That is kind of the American dream in some ways.
Start with nothing and end with most of it.
And swimming in gold coins. You've made it. You know, that is what our culture is kind of pumping out on us, whether we want to acknowledge it or not. That's absolutely there. And as Catholics, that's a problematic undercurrent since it goes against the gospel message and our calling as Christian disciples. And we're going to talk about that today. But we also, what?
Because if you think about it, there's some things, there's different categories of consumer goods, right? The top is like that luxury level.
Sure.
And then they'll have, when I've read about, you know, different things, they'll have a lower, still expensive, but for them, lower price offering, or even just a whole other brand that's lower in price. But those are called aspirational brands or aspirational purchases. That is the thing I aspire to be able to buy that thing, to be seen walking around with that bag or that phone or whatever it is. And that's what the world is calling us to aspire to, a particular type of consumption. But we are called to aspire to so much more. Now, finances,
what are we called to?
We are called to aspire heaven and holiness, a life of virtue, one that is worthy of imitation. Because we are imitating Christ.
Does that mean that money can't be a part of it?
Oh, money has to be a part of it. If we're not careful with the money part of it, we're not going to make it.
Right.
We're not going to understand or really, you know the way to be able to discern out, make it possible to know what we are.
Yes.
To aspire to.
Instead of our cultural's aspiration of endless seeking of money, endless amounts of money, more, instead of that influencing our faith and our mission and our calling in the world, we're going to flip that. And that actually is the way to look at this as a Christian disciple. We are going to use our calling, what we know about the truth about ourselves and about our God, and that is going to influence how we interact with and use money. See, that is the place that a Christian disciple enters into this conversation. So we're going to ask about, how much income is enough. Well, that's the conversation we're going to have today. And we are going to use our mission and our calling to influence what that number is going to look like. And that gets really interesting and really fun. And it's a very wide umbrella. So whatever preconceived notions you have, drop them right now, because we're talking about calling, and that always looks unique, and it always involves vastly different numbers from one person to the next. Enough for one may not be enough for another. And we're going to talk about those nuances here. And I hope that those of you listening to this will find great freedom in it. Freedom from, you don't just have to endlessly earn. You don't just have to get another raise. You don't just need more. Your calling and your mission, and we'll talk about how to discern that and how to ask questions to yourself to find that out. That is leading the way. And so you're always going to be getting the numbers where they need to be only to support what it is the calling is. Does that make sense? You're reverse engineering this around Jesus and his call in your life.
Yes.
And when you do it that way, if you're actually just following him and his will, what happens? He unlocks the doors to make the numbers work.
Yeah.
So let's dive in.
Oh.
Okay.
Woo! I got a goodie to share.
You got a goodie? You always got a goodie.
I got a goodie.
All right. Well, why don't I? Today I'm reading from a book called What the Bible Actually Says About Money by Scott Morton. He works for the Navigators, which is a Protestant non-denominational ministry. I was introduced to them back in college, and then we worked on staff with Focus, Fellowship of Catholic University Students, for 8.5 years. And this was a book we got during that time about fundraising, because we fundraised our income. And so while everything in this book is not something that is in agreement with a Catholic worldview, this particular meditation falls right in step. So I'm going to read a couple little segments from this reflection, and then we'll dive into the conversation.
Let's do it.
Okay. Imagine John the Baptist and Jesus submitting their budgets for a project with the Village Planning Commission. John comes wearing a garment of camel's hair and says his diet is locusts and wild honey. John's budget is low. Too low, say some suspicious commission members. But Jesus comes wearing a nice, seamless tunic. His budget has a huge line item for eating and drinking with tax collectors and sinners. Too high, say some frugal commission members. How about you? Suppose you submitted your budget to the planning commission. How much salary would you ask for? How much is enough?
Ooh.
All right, let's go.
That's a good way to look at it.
Mm-hmm. Let's take the emphasis off money and think about your income from Christ's perspective. In the Lord's Prayer, Jesus said, "May your kingdom come, may your will be done." What is on Jesus' mind? Advancing the gospel. In similar fashion, Paul said, "I do all things for the sake of the gospel." And he told the Philippians, "I know how to live with humble means, and I know how to live in prosperity. I can do all things through him who strengthens me." Instead of striving to earn more and more, how about this guideline? Earn enough to be at maximum fruitfulness in the unique calling God has given you. Your income level is a gospel issue and a personal calling issue, more than a money issue. Pastors and missionaries talk about their calling, but we forget that every person on earth is called by God to advance his kingdom. No one is insignificant. So what is your life calling? Is it broader than your job, your career? God has given you certain gifts and placed you in a certain family, in a certain geographical place to advance his kingdom. Of course, you need money to pay off debt, pay your bills on time, and maybe you ought to earn more, and maybe you ought to cut your expenses. But let your calling be the guide. The almighty dollar should not be the major factor in finding God's will.
Woo!
A friend recently took a pay cut with his company to join their human resources department instead of marketing. He felt his gifting and calling had set him up for this, but it drastically decreased his income. It was a step of faith for him and his wife. Seek an income that enables you to accomplish the unique calling God has given you. Never mind what others in your age bracket earn. John the Baptist and Jesus had different incomes, but they both accomplished their callings, and both were criticized.
Dang, Scott!
It's a really, really good
That's great.
Reflection.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking about it, and if you were packing for a trip, you could think, well, I just need to throw as much clothes and toiletries as will fit in this suitcase. but you need to take into account where you're going. If you're going up to Alaska in the winter, you got to get the parka and the pants and the thick socks and all that. But if you're going down, to an island paradise in the summer, well, you better have a bathing suit, some short sleeves.
Mm-hmm.
You have to
take the context
of where you're going. That needs to be what you need to have.
And thus, the context of your unique calling and what God's asking you and inviting you into in your life, in that context, you need to discern your income level. Mm-hmm. And for some of you, you're going to look at that and it's going to be, crap, I need to double my income. Mm-hmm. And for some of you, it's, wow, I don't really need all of this income and I could be giving way more than 10% because my maximum fruitfulness is actually about half.
Yeah.
And then now I get to give more.
Yeah.
And that's actually part of the calling that I've discerned in my life is that I get to be the provider for sending people on mission or advancing organizations. Mm-hmm. All right, so let's dive into dissecting some of the nuances here.
Yeah.
Let's talk about John the Baptist. Versus Jesus.
The budget showdown. But I would say Jesus could probably save some money if he would just have water. He probably could cut that wine budget. He could entirely.
He could probably have taken rocks and turned them into bread. Could have been free, but he was inviting the women that were with him to help be generous, and it was a blessing to them.
I know.
But there's a validity there. Let's go ahead and I want to take John and Jesus. I want to bring it into today.
When I think about this, I think it could very practically. You could look at it. You could pull out two families or whatever, or two husbands and wives, or two moms, or whatever it is, and you could just go, well, how much do you spend on groceries?
Ooh.
And the one could say, oh, well, we spend about $600 on groceries a month. And then some people will go, whoa, that's a lot of money. But then you ask the other one, she says,
and they spent $1,800.
How much?
$1,800.
Yeah, exactly. And you're like, oh, holy, what are you having lobster stuffed steak every night? What are you doing? He's like, no, I've got 10 kids. And it's like, yeah, the different calls on our life, even, right there, show up and how we need to provide for those in our care.
Yeah, and I think that the temptation, even in the church, is oftentimes to look at people and to make really big sweeping judgments on them about the way they look or how much they spend on groceries or the size of their house or if they're driving a rusty vehicle. We want to make loads of assumptions on how well they're doing in life based on if they look like they're living prosperously. Whereas we have no idea. And some of it could be people are just falling into the default and they're actually not discerning God's will in their life at all and engineering an income to support that maximum fruitfulness. That is no good. You have to start with the end in mind and discerning that call and that mission, not be asleep at the wheel, just accepting whatever life is throwing your way or not. That is also not God's call in your life. You're not supposed to just sit back and just kind of let things happen. But you very well, could at a parish run into a family that has 8 kids and, they drive a little bit of a rusty 11 passenger. What are those giant economy vans? And the kids are all dressed in used clothes, but they're happy and they're holy and they're radically giving, and they're giving probably more than 10%. And but they live very simply and they're very intentional about it. And they put their money into supporting things to help their kids grow in their faith and in holiness. But you could also at the same parish find a family with 7 kids, same thing, but they have a much nicer van and they have a much nicer home and they have everything, but they've also discerned that they're called to host radically. So they are hosting other families in their community regularly. And if you know anything about hosting, and hosting big families, we've been doing this now for about a year.
We've been inviting people over.
We've been trying to have families over every Saturday night for months now. And you just, if you're inviting big families over, you have to know you're going to go spend an extra $100 on groceries.
We start doing the calculations. on like how much food we need to make. I mean, we have got 5 people. I mean, they're small. Kids are small. But we're doing the calculation. We're like, really? This much meat? This much pasta? And we ate it.
Right. It fit. But, there's radically different. You could have the same an amounts of people and even maybe even the same amount of income, but they're going to show very differently. Mm-hmm. Or you could have different incomes, but both are answering God's call exactly how they're supposed to. And, the also undercurrent here is that you are stewarding what you are receiving prudently and wisely. Mm-hmm. So that's there too.
Let's just see where this.
So this was, yeah.
I know. I've got an idea. I didn't know if it was going to fit in later. It'll fit in the next one. It'll fit in the next one.
You said you had a biggie earlier. Did you already give your goodie?
Yeah, I already used my goodie.
Oh, okay. It was the suitcase.
I guess it wasn't that good. I should have made it a food analogy. I knew it.
Oh, you love analogies. He is the king of analogies. Jesus also loved analogies.
Telling the story to help prove a point. Wonder who did that.
There's some good people to do that. Let's talk about this point of just earning more to earn more. Okay. Oh man, other people in my age bracket, earning twice, or we even hear it in our Wallowin Academy members who are like, I just thought we'd be farther ahead by this time. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Or I look at my peers and they're doing X, Y, or Z, but I'm back here. And just this envy that can creep in against people that actually are earning more. And then this temptation of, I just should be earning.
It's also we see it too in the broader culture of when you are looking for a job, you would look up, what's the average pay for this? Mm-hmm. And then that's where I'm going to expect to be paid. That's where I'm going to hope to negotiate or maybe go a little bit past. Instead of, well, how much do I need to be paid? How much is being asked of me here? And then what do I think is fair and going to actually compensate me for doing this job? Mm-hmm. So so often we're looking over here, looking over there to figure out, to get our picture of what we need instead of looking at our life and understanding what we need.
Yep. Yeah. And I think that we can actively renounce, this temptation to just more and more and more. I remember, there'd be times when we were fundraising and there was definite validity to us just not fundraising enough. We were letting life happen to us. We were not saying, let's discern carefully the mission that we believe God's entrusted us with and then reverse engineer an income that supports that. We weren't doing that. But then with our business, we definitely did that. We kind of had to do that because when we launched this, we already had 2 kids. So we definitely had to say, okay, what's livable? We can justify still doing this because we still have our bills paid. What's a little bit of wiggle room and then what's maximum fruitfulness? Mm-hmm. We've had to discern those numbers over the years as our business has grown and not give into this temptation of just because I could give myself a raise doesn't really mean the Texeras need one. Or, it's hard to kind of renounce this urge for bigger, better, more that our culture just speaks to us.
I mean, it'll peter out at some ridiculous income level, but there's always more to buy. Mm-hmm. You're always, no matter how much money you have, unless you have, like $10 million a month or something crazy like that. So for most of us regulars in the world, there's always going to be, I could have gotten, we could have had steak one more time. We could have gone out one more time. We could have gotten this slightly bigger TV. We could have gotten this. Like, there's just these little things that are always going to be there. Even if you had an extra $1,000 a month, pretty soon you'd be wishing you had another $1,000 a month.
Could have done another trip.
There's always more. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean we always need more. And we don't always need to want more. But there's always going to be that temptation there. And instead, we walk in so many times, whether it is a line item on our budget, whether it's how we are responding to God's call in our life, we start at the price tag, right? Instead we go, or we're going out to eat or whatever. Go, okay, all right, well, we've got, $50 budgeted for this. Okay, we got to figure this out. Be doing all this work to figure out how to put all the pieces together and who might share this and what are we going to do here. Instead of maybe in advance, you look at the menu and you go, okay, well, we would want to be one of those, one of these, one of these. Oh, in order to go out to eat there and have an enjoyable night, it costs $85.
Right, an informed decision.
Then, in some way, I mean, it's maybe not a great mission, but like what you want to accomplish is driving the financial decision. And then you make the decision of, okay, that costs $85 to go out and have an enjoyable time there. Is that in line with our priorities and our budget right now? Mm-hmm. And so whether it's, I can't go on that mission trip, or I can't do this because it costs this much, instead of, well, I really want to do that, and I would think that would be very beneficial to me
or my kids or whatever,
kids or whoever, and it costs this much. How do we figure out how to make that happen? Whether it's cutting expenses here or there, whether it's figuring out higher income.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, on either side there, it's always just more is not the driver.
The right amount.
The right amount is the driver. And so for some of you, it's going to tell you need more money. Okay?
Certainly.
To actually live this out. And for some of you, you might not need everything that you're earning, and you have an opportunity to funnel it into different ways, either setting it aside for the future, or blessing others, or giving more radically than you already have been.
Yeah. Now, we're not the best. I guess we're going to segue in. Yeah? All right, here we go. We're definitely not the best gardeners. But we've got some plants out back. We're going to eat some of them in a couple months.
We do it for the kids.
I do it for the tomatoes. It's fun.
It's good.
But I know we don't pay as much attention to it as we should, right? The right type of soil, and we just kind of buy whatever.
No.
It's gonna
throw it in the ground.
It's all day sun, no matter what it wants. But those plants, I mean, this is quite literally maximum fruitfulness. Those plants are going to want a particular amount of water. And if you don't get enough, they're not going to be as fruitful. And if you give them too much, they're not going to be as fruitful. Or same with amount of sun or temperature, pH. Whatever it is. If it's underperforming, you're not giving it enough, you're not going to get as much. You aren't going to be as fruitful in your life. But if you have too much money, you're going to be, that plant who's, the roots are going to rot out, and you're not going to be as fruitful either.
Exactly. So let's talk about this. So the question in the book was,
zero in on maximum fruitfulness.
Earn enough to be at maximum fruitfulness in the unique calling God has given you. And, earlier we talked about those two different families and whatnot. But I think it would be helpful. I mean, I can't sit here and come up with 5 hypotheticals. Mm-hmm. That's always tough. But I think that this is something that we could talk about how we've applied it in our own life.
Sure. One little...
And then other people could probably do the same for themselves.
Reference point here is when we were we were making the Catholic Money course, mm-hmm. and I was doing the video on investing ethically. We looked at, as an example, the guidelines the USCCB uses for their investments.
Okay.
And when their definition for themselves of what a good return is that it either matches the market or through that return would give them enough income to do what they need to do. So it doesn't really matter what everybody else is doing.
Yeah, it doesn't perform as highly, but
it performs highly enough for me. I only need it to do whatever percent. Mm-hmm. So if it does that, well, bada bing, that's all I was asking it to do. That is a good understanding of maximum, of the amount of money for maximum fruitfulness. Mm-hmm. We need to do this, so that's what we need.
Yeah. Yep. So for us, how this conversation is manifested over the years, and I just want to caveat, this is ever evolving. Mm-hmm. It is ever evolving, and you are going to have to ask yourself the same questions. But essentially, over the years, I'm just going to draw a couple different seasons. So there was a time where we were just having some health stuff, some health issues, wide variety of things between the entire family. Mm-hmm. And, the way it is with our healthcare, we had basically not been using it for a couple of years because we knew we had a high deductible and we didn't want to have to prioritize that.
Maybe that led to the need at this point.
Right.
In time.
And so then things had started to get neglected, and we started to realize whoa. Like, we are not at maximum fruitfulness because this, that, and another health issue is consistently getting in the way and either draining this person's energy or making this person so they can't actually handle certain things in family life or handle certain stressors or whatever. And so, right now, maximum fruitfulness is that we need to get all the health care meetings and appointments and blood draws and things that we need immediately. And so at that point, it was, okay, great. We need, in addition to the hundreds a month that we pay, we need X $1,000 immediately so that we no longer feel like we can't go to these appointments. And we're just going to plan on maxing this deductible out this year. And that is what it is. And that is maximum fruitfulness for this family, is that we need to address these things right now. And it was challenging because we didn't necessarily have that easily available without robbing it from other categories. But we had to ask ourselves, how can we make it possible? How can we have that happen? And then over the next couple of months, we were able to do that.
Yeah.
Another example, and you feel free to jump in here.
I mean, I'm not the one. I was looking at you earlier and smiling. I saw you saw me doing that, and I'm just like, I am just in awe of your brain.
How I remember stuff?
Yeah. I'm not so good at that. Mm-hmm.
That's okay.
Did I remember to put my pants on today?
You're not the dumb husband tangled in the curtains. That is from a Brian Regan bit that is
and I ate it.
Hilarious. So go listen to I forget what it's about. It's about muffins or something, or yogurt. The dumb husband bit. That is not you. Another time, we had, this is just a couple of years ago, pandemic had hit, and we basically stayed home all of March, all of April, a good bit of May, and then we traveled out for your grandfather's funeral in June. Mm-hmm. And just the teeny tiny little bit of travel after months of lockdown with an 18-month-old, a 2-year-old, and a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old had us like batty. Maximum fruitfulness was struggle. It was a struggle bus. And so just that little bit of travel kind of re-sparked something in us of like, we got to get out of the house. We are shack wacky. We got to get out of this place. And so we need an RV. And we need an RV now. That was kind of the decision of like, we will be more fruitful with each other, with our children, with our business, if we have a way to get out and travel, even if it's 20 miles away for the weekend. Let alone the big trips, but we just need something. And we watched a video where it was talking about RVs, and it was like the right RV is the RV that gets you on the road. And so, for a long time, I had it in my head that I wanted an RV, but it was this $45,000 situation, and that was just a little bit out of reach. A little bit?
Yeah, I was saying,
that was a lot away. That was a lot out of reach. But we did have enough to make something like we could go older. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden now this fell into the budget.
Yeah.
And we used that, okay, wait, all right, we need to pursue maximum fruitfulness here. And so we need to free up a few $1,000s and find something that fits that bill. And that is exactly what happened.
Yes, that's right. We bought a pig. We bought a tube of lipstick. And we've been having fun with her ever since.
Honestly, no. She runs well. We
Not quite a pig.
We are horrible renovators. Not because, and the reason for it, this could be a whole nother conversation, but I have no attention to detail. I just want it done, over with, and immediate. Like I want it done a week ago, even though I just bought it today, you know? So one, I've learned that about myself. And two, you don't have time. Like you could have renovated it amazingly, but to do that would have taken 3 solid weeks working full time. And there was just no possible way we could give you that. Mm-hmm. So we got a pig with lipstick. You know,
she's
you go.
Our pig.
She's our pig. Yeah. And it's good enough. It gets us out and it's serving the purpose which it is intended to. Mm-hmm. So there we go.
I have an example.
Yay!
To share. So this is about, right, God putting a call in front of us and then maybe one of us letting the price tag dictate the answer at first.
Ooh, good story. Yes, let's go there. Because you're right. This is absolutely a factor for us.
So what am I going to tell? Sorry, you start the story.
Amanda traveled to Toronto in the summer of 2018. And money was so tight because we were only 6 months into running our business. And, you know, while it had been performing, it was not enough for our family to live every month comfortably. Mm-hmm. And we had to reinvest so much of it into tech and subscriptions and different things that we couldn't take everything we earned. So we were living off savings. So I go up to this conference.
Yeah, this conference, and it's in Toronto, so we're not talking a lot.
Because I didn't get the international plan. But we had wireless, so we were talking, I think, on Messenger.
We would do those
when I would have Wi-Fi.
And then we drove east. Excuse me.
I was not staying at the actual hotel where the event was.
Of course not.
I was staying at a hostel for teenagers 5 blocks away.
And your fake ID
because it was only like $50 or $40 a night or something crazy. But they served a killer breakfast in the morning, so I don't care. And then I got to walk through the gorgeous streets of Toronto, back and forth from this conference, so it was totally fine.
So the girls and I were hanging out at my parents' house for a couple days while you drove north to Toronto, and I get a call saying, "Hey."
Sorry, our kids are speaking through the vent upstairs.
The air vents
you just need to ignore it.
Yeah, so I got a call from Amanda saying, "Hey," and this was unusual that you would actually call, especially at that time of day. And you said, "Oh, I just got a call from the
adoption agency we'd used for our middle daughter,
and we are being asked to adopt again.
Here's the price.
Here's the situation. Here's the price. You know, all the fees and there's a lot of money that just kind of disappears." And I heard that, and in my mind, I saw that number, and I just thought, we can't do that. We don't have that money. We can't say yes to this, even though, man, I wanted to say yes. As soon as I heard about it, I wanted to say yes.
So you felt that calling in your heart, but you used
money. The money was the reason dictate. To say no to that call, before it even grew, essentially lop off that branch and not let that fruit come to fruition.
Right. And because we have infertility, it's just different for us. Like when we don't feel called to say yes to every single adoption situation that might come our way ever, but it's consistently, whenever it has been the situation for us, we know very clearly interiorly, like this is God asking us to trust him, just like if we had perfect fertility and maybe conceived and the timing wasn't right or it was stressful or whatever, like you still are excited for new life. So in this situation, it felt like such a challenge because now we have to put money in there. But so you were kind of a no.
Well, I don't even know if I got to say no. Because then you said, and I've been talking to all these people up here at this conference, these other, online business owners, and they've helped me who are much more experienced than we
were green.
Maybe are. They had a lot of experience. And so we put together this plan. We're going to do this and this and this. And this is how we're going to have that money. And we're going to do this thing. Mm-hmm. And I thought, oh, great.
Right. And I will tell you this. Like,
so then I hung up the phone and I told my parents we were going to have another kid.
What's funny, like when you tell this story, I end up coming out sounding like the hero and sounding like I was just this confident person. But listen, I'll tell you, my body was coursing with fear and adrenaline the rest of this conference.
Yeah.
And honestly, probably for the next 6 weeks, because we had to pull off something we had never pulled off before. But at that conference, I was shaking in my chair the entire time. And when these business owners took me aside on a dinner break and they got like a whiteboard and markers and they were asking me questions and they were doing numbers and I stood there shaking the whole time. And so I say that just to say sometimes saying yes to God's will isn't just, woo, I'm all confident, the Lord will provide. It's, yes, Lord. Like... I just gave you 5 loaves and 2 fish, and somehow you're going to provide for 5,000 people and have leftovers. I don't know how you're going to do it yet, but I'm here. It looks scared but willing. And I think that that's the lives of the saints too.
Yeah.
So when you are discerning maximum fruitfulness for the unique call that God has given you, at first, as you start to do this and, you might find yourself in some scary situations or situations that don't feel comfortable. But we weren't made for comfort. We were made for greatness. And when you follow God's will, the money will always show up somehow, some way. It will. Whether it comes in the way you expected it to or some other way that you never saw coming. When you say yes to His will, and you prioritize His calling in your life and trying to be as fruitful in that as you possibly can, He'll provide. He'll provide the means. Mm-hmm. He always does.
Yeah, He'll give you, not that magically this money is going to show up in your bank account.
No.
But all the different ways, whatever it is that He's asking you to do, the personal connections that you need to make, the money that you'll need to have, the job you might need to have in order to have that money, whatever it might be, the person you just need to randomly run into. All those things are totally in His power to do.
Yeah. And
I've seen them happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to dive into, so we talked about some like big stuff here. We talked about some high level stuff. Let's talk about, maximum fruitfulness. Could hiring a monthly cleaning crew to come clean your house be part of maximum fruitfulness for your unique calling?
This is why you wanted to do this episode.
Duh. We have had a long debate about hiring cleaning help in the Texera household. Sometimes we have, more times than not, we do not. Because Jonathan does not. Anyway, we don't have to get into it.
We don't need to get into it. It's a lot more complicated than you might want to say this. Anyway, the idea is, yes, if you did hire someone to do that, that very well could free you up. The house wouldn't be so crazy, so you wouldn't be so stressed.
Mm-hmm. So you can show up better as a wife and a mother.
Mm-hmm. We'd have more time to spend
either as a family or working on a business.
Mm-hmm, in order to provide for that family and for others. There's a lot of reasons why it could be. Now, not for everyone. This is not a universal Oh, yes. Everyone, in order to be fruitful, you must hire cleaning help.
No, I think it's nuanced. And I will say for us, it's something that regularly comes up in conversation. And the times when we did discern that, yeah, it is serving maximum fruitfulness, that's when we've hired cleaning help. And then other times no, it actually isn't, because it's going to put too much strain on the budget here, or it's going to ripple out, and the
good that it's going to do is going to be offset by good that won't be able to happen elsewhere.
Yeah, or maybe it's feeding anxiety, or it's fraught, right? But yeah, if it can serve maximum fruitfulness for your unique calling, 100%. As could anything, like deciding to sign up for one of those meal kits where they just deliver food to you. That could be at different times in your life as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's always there's we can make a laundry list of all the things that could help us and not be able to afford all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to figure out, okay, where's the biggest return on this? Where's the biggest, if I only have so much water to give the plants, well, I need to give it to the plant that's going to make the most nutritious and most amount of food to keep me alive.
Mm-hmm.
And so you need to figure out where is that call on your life, how you are going to get to that fruitfulness, and what things can you do right now. I mean, I don't think anybody's going to go from maybe where they're at now to maximum fruitfulness in a week.
No, this takes time.
It can take a long time. Maximum. I mean, let's increase our fruitfulness.
I would say we're not even there.
No way.
We're continuing to build to that.
We're just looking to increase the yield a little bit in this harvest for now. Mm-hmm. That's the step. And so that's where instead of, I need this and this and this.
I need $300,000 to make it all happen. That might be true,
maybe,
but it could be a stepping stone process to get there. Mm-hmm. And can God use the process of incremental growth into this as a way to also bring fruit to your life? Absolutely.
Yeah.
The journey, right, without coming up with some cliche notebook, whatever. The journey is where it happens, or whatever those things are. The distance there, right, between our desire, what we know we're called to, and then actually living in it, that process is meant to sanctify us and grow us. Mm. You might feel called to religious life, but it takes years to actually find the right order. You might feel called to marriage, but until you meet your spouse, and it could be 10 years after you feel that desire, are those just 10 wasted years of your life? Mm. Absolutely not. You were growing the entire time, getting to that place where you were called to live in your unique calling. So anyway, yeah.
This is
I didn't know how to land that plane.
This is good.
Let's see. All right, let's end this. Boy, this has been a longie,
yeah,
but it's a goodie. It's a good conversation, certainly. So last thing here. Sorry, just trying to put this down. Is just that. Oh, actually, I wanted to ask some questions.
Ooh, ask away.
There were more. I wanted to leave you with reflection questions. You are called to be a disciple, and you're called to advance the kingdom of God. You don't have to be a missionary, a priest, or a nun to do that. You are all the baptized are called to go out and make disciples. Whether you feel equipped to that or not, it's your call. And we'd love to help you, point you towards resources if you don't feel equipped for that. Mm-hmm. I'd love to point you in the direction of different podcasts and books and resources to help you get the equipment you need to go on that journey. Because that making disciples, whether it be in your family, your neighbors, your neighborhood, your church, your just people that you meet in your workplace or out and about, that is your life's call. That is where you're going to find the most joy and be most fulfilled. And so I want you to figure out what is the unique way God is calling you to live that. And then how can you pursue maximum fruitfulness and reverse engineer an income that is going to support that. So here's the questions. Does your income allow you to accomplish your calling? So does your income allow you to accomplish your calling? And then the second question, how would you describe your calling? It could look really different. How would you describe your calling? Are you called to be hospitable? Are you called to lead? Are you called to be a radical giver? Are you called to be a mentor? I don't know. But again, the church is a big umbrella, and God creates people in all different types of personalities, with all different types of capacities, with all different types of interests and giftings, etc. So I don't know how it's going to look for you. But does your income allow you to accomplish your calling? And then how would you describe your? No more asleep at the wheel. Oh, I get a paycheck, pay bills, pay debt. Don't think, no robot. You need to discern that and reverse engineer how to pursue maximum fruitfulness in that call that you have been invited to by God, by the God of the universe. You've been sent on mission. Get swept up in that adventure. Say yes. There we go. You want to end us in prayer, John?
Yes, please. Pray in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Our good and loving Father, thank you for all that you've given us, most especially our life, our relationship with you. Help us to grow in love as we serve you, as we come before you, asking for more clarity on the ways you've asked us to participate in the work of salvation. Give us all just clear pictures of what you're asking us to do, and the courage, the insight, the wisdom and discernment to know that and to trust you in the way of bringing us there. Bless us that we may follow you in your ways and find maximum fruitfulness for your sake. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Woo! All right. Well, let's go out there and be fruitful. Bye.
I thought you were landing the plane there.
I did. It was a bumpy landing. Bye.
Goodbye for now.